Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology, and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com. Hello everyone, welcome to SciTech Culture. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern. To talk about driverless cars, a topic we've covered in the past, but not quite from this angle. And I think the story we're going to talk about today highlights just how difficult it is in creating a driverless car. I don't know if you found it amusing, but I actually found it amusing initially, and then I thought, oh yeah, that actually makes sense. That there's a story in the ABC which was talking about essentially kangaroos throwing off animal detection software in a driverless car because the nature of their movement made it really difficult, at least for the current generation of software, to be able to detect the kangaroo. So now this is I guess a niche example of the difficulty in creating a driverless car. But what was your takeaway from that? That there's a lot more that they need to do. It's going to take a lot longer to get there. Or is it just complicated and they just have to just work their way down the list of things to account for?
Well, it's an interesting thing, and the first thing I want to say is, as someone who's hit a number of kangaroos in a lot of years driving out in kangaroo-plagued roads, it's hard enough for a human to avoid them anyway, but that's for a completely different reason. I mean, as a human, you see them, but you hit them anyway. So maybe a driverless car is just effectively doing the same thing. Now, on this, you have to understand how the autonomous systems work. They're machine learning. So what they do is they basically play hundreds of thousands of videos in a simulation, and the movement of an animal on the road teaches the car how an animal moves and how to avoid that animal, how to recognize that it's one, an animal moving on the road, and two, how to avoid it. And of course, four-legged animals, they run, whether they're a dog, whether they're a cat, they run differently and they behave differently on the road, but they're a smooth horizontal movement. Kangaroos aren't. They hop, and they can change direction in a hop. So I don't know. Kangaroos are frighteningly unpredictable when you come across them at night on the roads. So I don't know what hope a human has. And if a human can't deal with it, I don't know what a driverless car is ever going to be able to do about it.
I'm sure this is the case when they're actually programming these driverless cars and developing the hardware for them. But I would think that a driverless car, I assume this is the case, would be sending out, I guess, a sensory, wave or blip or something in every single direction from the car to be able to determine if anything is coming at it from any angle. Regardless of whether it's in the front or not. Obviously, the front's the most important because that's the direction it's going in. But a kangaroo, for instance, could obviously come from the side. It might be harder to detect, that it is coming from the side. Well, I guess any animal could be coming from any direction. And is it just a case of developing better sensitivity for these types of sensors, or would they eventually get there?
Well, yeah, I would think so. The problem is how do you get hundreds of thousands of videos of kangaroos jumping across the road? As you know, you can model. The interesting thing is you can model a cat or a dog because they work in four planes. So they're either going this way or this way, or a combination of the two. Kangaroo is working in 6 planes because they're going up and down at the same time as they're going this way or this way.
Yeah.
So the complexity for a machine to understand, just as difficult as it is for a human to understand where that kangaroo is going to go on its next bounce, whether it's going to go towards you or away from you or continue straight across, that's exactly the same problem. And also, the fact that there could be 2 or 3 kangaroos bouncing around in different directions at the same time in front of you, it doesn't make it any easier. So I think what's being lost here is, like kangaroos almost impossible to track, but humans aren't much better at that anyway. Otherwise, no human would ever have hit a kangaroo.
Well, what about the idea that maybe driverless cars, maybe in the first instance, should be limited only to particular types of areas? So this, in a sense, we're talking about a problem that would be, in effect, for the most part, rural rather than metropolitan in terms of where the actual car would be. Would it be simpler for a driverless car system to be implemented in, say, a city area as opposed to a rural area in the first instance until they can work this out?
Much easier, much easier. In fact, in Australia, in some capital cities, they're actually line marking the roads in metro areas specifically for driverless cars. I think the famed Tesla accident when the guy was watching the DVD and unfortunately T-boned a semi-trailer, that was interesting too, because from what I understand, as the truck passed in front of him, there's a space in between the top of the back of the truck and the wheels underneath. And the Tesla saw, as I understand, and I'm not really across this, just that there was space. It saw the space underneath the truck, underneath the carriage of the truck, and therefore didn't see the threat. And it just goes to show you, that while this technology is very, very good, it makes mistakes. It can be fooled or tricked by visual, imagery. And I think it's also important to know as well, humans are far from perfect. We've got horrendous road tolls even by modern standards today. So I don't know if we could ever, expect driverless cars to get, accidents and incidents down to zero. And I'm sometimes a bit bemused by the fact that everybody seems to think that they have to make zero mistakes to be safe.
Well, what about, to finish on this point, that is what could potentially limit the introduction of them, in that, as humans, I think the natural psychological imperative is to feel like you're in control. And while humans are not perfect drivers by any means, there's a level of, intuition and instinct that kicks in regardless of whatever activity you're doing. But say if we're doing this with driving, that is almost beyond the complication of what anything that a machine could figure out. And that for that reason, that because you can make those really quick decisions based on intuition and instinct, that you're probably better served being in control of the car compared to a car that is controlling itself, because at least the feeling of that while you're in the car is that you are in control. So if I can imagine that people would be very apprehensive about going into a driverless car because they are not in control for this reason.
Well, that's fine if that's how they feel. I'd feel much better in a driverless car, and I won't feel safe on the roads until they remove every human.
Well, that's the other side of things as well, is that for this to really work.
That's my take on it. I'd much prefer every car to be driverless and no humans.
But you can imagine that it would work.
Kangaroo.
But you can imagine it would work then if all the cars were driverless. It's like an all or nothing sort of option. If that was to occur, then you'll probably have a better system in place.
Well, let's make no mistake about it. The worst crashes on the road at the moment are caused by humans. So I want to see humans say that they shouldn't be taken off the roads.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Steve, we might wrap it up there. So don't forget our website, scitechculture.com. You can get all of our links and content there, and you can subscribe to all our channels, and we'd greatly appreciate that. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.